I don't want to rely on writing as a source of income for the exact reasons you talk about, where it's a volatile, it is like, did your book flop, like in terms of dollars? Art needs to be done for art's sake, I think. And Oscar Wilde thinks.
Good morning, fellow writers, and welcome to The Morning Edit. I'm James, an author, editor, and the owner of The Arcanist, an independent publisher dedicated to sharing excellent fantasy fiction. This is the show where you and I sit down with a cup of coffee and talk all things fantasy publishing, especially from the perspective of the independent author. It's Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, and joining our talk today is C.D. Jensen, a tenured professor and the author of The Crown and the Caged God. The second book in that series is coming out very soon, and if it's available, you know there will be links in the description. Today, we're discussing what success looks like for a writer who has a full-time job. I've been very open in the past about my preference for working a full-time job rather than trying to write full-time. Not only is this more accessible, but it maintains your love for the craft and gives you more varied perspectives to bring into your fiction. I asked C.D. Jensen how he feels about this, and this is what he said. Let's get to the talk. When you're approaching a creative thing that starts to bring in money, you need to consider what you want out of it, whether it's going to be your living. For me, I'm not comfortable with my writing putting food on the table.
I don't think finances matter. I mean, okay, so they matter to some people, whatever, but I'm right there with you where like I have another job.
Yeah.
Actually, people would think I have like just like plenty of money because I've been a professor for 10 years, sort of like I live paycheck to paycheck. My wife starts her work as a physical therapist on Monday. And so our finances will start to turn around finally, where we're no longer like paycheck to paycheck. Like we don't even own a car. My last two phones were just inherited. The last phone I bought, I was living in Connecticut. It was a burner phone, and so like I have just had like my most recent phone is an iPhone 7 that a student gave me because the previous phone I was using was just too embarrassing, and like we don't own a car, and it's just like paycheck to paycheck. But Marie starts work as a physical therapist on Monday, and I feel like our finances will actually be comfortable at that point. But I would never, I don't want to rely on writing as a source of income for the exact reasons you talk about, where it's a volatile, it is like, did your book flop, like in terms of dollars? Is this book taking you longer? Are you putting in 8 hours for 100 words? Are you like, what's happening? And art needs to be done for art's sake, I think. And Oscar Wilde thinks, maybe my position comes slightly from his quotations, but if I'm relying on art of any kind, in this particular kind would be writing, to put food on the table or pay for rent, pay whatever, buy a car or something like that, it changes my relationship with it.
Yes.
And I don't want that relationship. I don't want that relationship with art. I want it to come from the heart, and the heart isn't going to earn a lot of dollars. Sometimes it does. I would say there are examples. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I would say there are examples where, like you and I, we do not want to. In I think maybe your most recent video, you said you don't want to have commercialization in mind. However, you will present your work in a way that can be bought. Right. I'm paraphrasing, but that I think is so important where, if you put out your work in a way that's like nobody's ever going to read it, then you haven't really achieved your purpose of giving people the opportunity for connection. Queens of the Stonies, Josh Homme, he's like, I would rather be 50 people's favorite band than like 500,000 people's 50th favorite band, something like that. And I think that's your approach and my approach, where it's a true human connection is the goal. Human connection. You make money in other ways. I make money in other ways. I don't want to compromise that way. Now, I think the true works of art in history, let me go back to like Mona Lisa, go through Princess Bride, Lord of the Rings, these works that they did achieve commercial success or cultural success, critical success. And yet it came from the heart. Like Princess Bride is a classic example because Rob Reiner and William Goldman writes a book, Rob Reiner directs it, and they're like, how do we market this thing? You know, that's sort of the cliche story about it. But, you know, is this a love story? Is this a tale? Is this action adventure? Is this fantasy? Is this revenge? What is this? And they struggled, and the theatrical release was a struggle. Eventually it found its audience. And so I think a lot of art eventually finds its audience. And those are the true masterpieces of civilization, I think, are done from the heart with no marketability, and yet it manages to achieve both. If people focus on the latter, if people focus on marketability, it's like focus groups, and they get a target audience, and they write to that audience. I don't think that's art, right? That's enterprise. But if people create art and it connects with people, that's meaningful. Now, if it connects with a lot of people, I think those are the masterpieces. If I'm to come up with some sort of objectivity in the best way I can, that's how I would describe sort of the true works of art of humanity that would survive. You know, because what do we look back on in previous cultures? You know, ancient Egyptians, ancient fill in the blanks, and their art is really what survived. You know, it's the works of Gilgamesh, and it's the paintings, and it's whatever. Those previous civilizations, we just take our art forward, their art forward, and the greatest, you know, statue of David and Sistine Chapel, and let's just previous generations take their art and discard everything else, basically. And the art that was made from the heart and yet had critical or commercial success, those are the masterpieces that endure the death of a generation, I think.
I would agree. And I think, I mean, there's always a balance with finances because, I mean, when you're writing to market and you're literally just attacking a trope in order to be the first one to do it or whatever, you've lost you're not doing what you want to do. You're laboring. My daytime job that got me through college was fixing gaming computers for a rent-to-own company. You know, we'd send out these iBuyPowers and whatever, and then they come back filthy, and I'd repair them in-house. And I thought that'd be so cool because I love putting together computers. I mean, you can see the stuff behind me. Like I
wondered.
I'm a bit of a computer nerd, but now that's work. You know, it has changed my relationship with, I don't put together computers here at home. Like I have a home server down here that I had all set up, and then a transformer went and killed the motherboard, and I got it back up and running, but barely, because do I want to really spend my free time working on more computers? You know, I do it all day. And
my dad's a machinist. And so does he really want to come home from work and work on an engine?
Yes.
It does it all day for a paycheck, and then that paycheck, we start to develop like contingency management is like, it's a type of thing where, you know, if you pay people to reimburse them for an activity, you can motivate that activity. Researchers like Nancy Petrie, very prominent in the literature, Danielle Barry, but the problem is, if you pay people for art, you pay people for exercise, you pay people for whatever to participate in, when you withdraw that money, you pay people for sport participation or, you know, PE, or when you withdraw that money, that, well, this is a job, I'm not going to do this without reimbursement. Mm-hmm. You know, and so the intrinsic is not, you don't get extrinsic reward added to the intrinsic reward. You get extrinsic occupying the geography where intrinsic should live. And then if you withdraw the extrinsic, maybe it's possible to redevelop a sense of self-satisfaction in the pursuit itself, but it sort of suffocates that internal reward that we would have. And so what you say about computers rings true, where you sort of would do this as a hobby, and it's fun and it's enjoyable, and you get your dopamine, and then as soon as you're paid for it, it updates our mental processing of where we place that. Like, oh, this is labor, I need to be paid for it, and so I'm not going to take labor home with me. And so as we go through life, our interests and behaviors continue to change based on our experiences, and that seems like an example of that.
And that's a really big reason why publishing other people is so interesting to me, because it's very possible that the Arcanist becomes a salaried position for me as a publisher, as an editor, as somebody who's selling other people's books. That is all totally different stuff. It's communication, it's contracts, it's negotiations, it's marketing. And when so my writing is, even though I lump my own stuff into my company's lineup, I work on that writing when it's time for me to do something I want. All the stuff I have to do is the stuff for other people. And it kind of creates this separation between labor and passion, and is a good compromise where, let's say in 5 years, I'm able to make a livable income just on The Arcanist as an LLC publishing books. That money is not coming from my writing. It's coming from other people's writing that I've developed as a product. Jumping back to the idea of marketing and achieving a balance between putting something genuine out into the world, but also setting up for success by, you're not writing to market, you're writing what you want, you're writing your truth. But it also, as an artist, if I am writing something that bears some sort of emotional truth for me or a reader, it is my responsibility to get it out into the world where it can be consumed. And in our capitalistic society, the way to do that is to wrap it up in a nice little box and put it for sale. That is how you're going to get it out to people. If you found this video helpful or enjoyable, give it a like and a subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Remember to check out The Arcanist. Our complete 2025 selection of magazines are available now. Magazine subscribers get both issues and access to our complete online archive. This is the best way to support what I do. Magazines aren't your thing, I'm also on Substack, where I publish free written articles to companion with these types of videos, and paid members get early access to videos, my podcast, and exclusive content that will be available at some point. Until next time, keep writing, keep revising, and keep waking up early.